I'll be talking about the Korean pear. So what is the Korean pear? The Korean pear is also known as the Asian pear, and it is native to Korea, China, and Japan. I will be using the term Korean pear and Asian pear interchangeably throughout this presentation just because it does mostly go by the name of the Asian pear, but where I purchased it from, it was the Korean pear. So some quick pear history. It originated in China and Japan, but it moved to Korea and other Asian countries, and it's been growing in those countries for nearly 3,000 years. Today, China continues to dominate the pear growing industry. So some cultural ties to the Asian pear. As I said earlier, it is native to China and Japan, but it has strong cultural ties to many Asian communities because they have been growing them for thousands of years. In China, the Asian pear is seen as a sign of immortality and prosperity. And in the Chinese language, the word li means both separation and pair. And so legend said that spouses should never split a pair because it's essentially splitting their immortality and prosperity. And you just should not split a pair in Chinese culture. In Korea, the pear symbolizes nobility, grace, and comfort. And legends suggest that the pear gives women increased fertility. Some Christian cultures also view the pear as a sign of purity because they view the pear as a sign of the Virgin Mary. So they tie that into purity. Also in China, they link the Asian pear to immortality because the trees live so long and they produce so much fruit that they feel that that's a sign of immortality and prosperity for them. So some political aspects. Like I said earlier, China continues to dominate the production industry for Asian pears. And then domestically here, we see California and Oregon being big producers of pears here. And then a lot of second generation pear growers here that have now passed or have cut down their trees because they're unable to compete with large scale producers in the California Valley. And that's largely corporate farms as it terms to like these second generation or more family farms. So the nutrient composition of an Asian pear, the suggested serving size is 100 grams, and that'll give you about 176 calories, 0.5 grams of protein, 10.6 grams of carbohydrates, 7.5 grams of sugar, 3.6 grams of fiber, and 0.23 grams of fat. So you can see it's pretty carb dense and has quite a bit of sugar in there as well, but you're not getting a lot of fat or protein from that, but you are getting a good serving of fiber, which is essential to your diet. So some key vitamins in the Asian pear, you see potassium, vitamin K, magnesium, calcium, phosphorus. So they're very nutrient dense for how low calorie they are. So some relationship to disease. Consuming the Asian pear can help you manage your weight because of its high fiber content and low calorie composition. It allows you to eat more and feel fuller from eating not that many calories. And then it has a lot of vitamin C in it as well, which we all know is can help protect your immune system. And then its high potassium counteracts sodium to regulate blood pressure. So potassium and sodium have a inverse relationship. So if you consume a lot of potassium, it lowers the sodium in your body. And if you consume a lot of sodium, it lowers the potassium in your body. So the high potassium of the pear is what allows it to regulate your blood pressure. And then clotting and bone health, vitamin K contributes to your body's ability to clot. So for people that might have clotting issues, they could get some vitamin K from this. And then also, like we said, on the last slide, it has a pretty good amount of calcium in it, and that is essential to bone health. So some agriculture facts. The seasonality of the pear in warmer countries, such as like the Asian countries that grow it, their harvesting season is in mid-July. And in countries such as ours, where it's a little colder, it could be mid-September before the fruit is ready. And harvesting is overall tricky because if you harvest too soon, they're said to have the consistency of a potato. So you don't want to bite into a potato. No one wants to do that. And then if you pick them too late, they're too mushy. So it's a very slippery slope when picking. And then so fertilizer and pesticides are actually essential to the growth of an Asian pear because the Asian pear tree is extremely susceptible to bacterial disease. It's called fire blight, and it basically within hours can kill the entire tree. It starts at the leaves and then it goes down into the roots. So it's said that heavy fertilizer needs to be put on the land before you plant the tree. And then it takes 3 to 5 years for the tree to mature. So in those 3 to 5 years, fertilizing it with the essential fertilizer um, that's compatible with that soil type, and then fire blight spray. Without the fire blight spray, the tree will most likely die and will be unable to consume the fruit harvested from the tree. So my tasting experience, I got to go to the Lucky Asian Market and I really enjoyed the Asian pear overall. It tasted very like a cross between an apple and a pear. But it was like a little bit more watery than I expected. And overall, like the consistency was almost like watermelon, pear, and apple because it was so watery. But the flavor was really good and it was very similar to an apple in terms of texture. And a little misconception that people have is that it actually is the cross between an apple and a pear because it looks very similar to like an apple, but it genetically is not. It's genetically a pear. So my cultural perspective on the Asian pear, like I mentioned earlier, the European pear is not very popular in most Asian countries. The Asian pear dominates the growing industry there. But the European pear is very popular here, and I have had that. And the Asian pear wasn't available at my usual grocery stop. So it forced me to kind of venture out into markets where I don't typically shop from. And I love the Asian pear, and I think that this experience was valuable to me because it enables you to look at a food from the perspective of its origins and culture to which it belongs to. And without that, I probably wouldn't have tried the Asian pear. So I'm grateful for that experience. And then here are my works cited.